Deep within the embrace of the Pacific Northwest, shrouded by ancient forests and shrouded in mist, stood Willow Creek Manor. The manor was once a grand estate, but now it was a decaying testament to time and tragedy. The locals spoke of the manor in hushed tones, their voices laced with fear and warning. It was a place where darkness lingered, where the veil between the living and the dead was thin. Willow Creek Manor had been abandoned for decades, left to decay after a series of unexplained deaths within its walls. Some whispered of a family driven to madness, their sanity claimed by an evil that seeped from the very foundation. Others spoke of a vengeful spirit, its heart twisted by betrayal and loss, forever bound to the estate. The truth, like the manor itself, remained shrouded in shadow and mystery. The manor stood as a spectre of its former glory. Its once gleaming windows were now vacant eyes staring blankly into the forest. The roof sagged, burdened by years of neglect and the weight of its grim history. The air around the manor was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay, a chilling reminder of the secrets hidden within. Willow Creek Manor was a place of whispers and shadows, where the past refused to die and the darkness held sway. It was a place to be avoided, a place where curiosity could lead to a terrifying and inescapable fate. The old logging road leading to Willow Creek Manor was treacherous on the best of days, but on this stormy autumn evening it was nearly impassable. The mud clung to the tires, making every turn a struggle, and the visibility was almost zero. Rain lashed down, driven by a relentless wind that howled through the trees like a banshee. The windshield wipers struggled to keep up, barely making a dent in the torrent of water. The old trees swayed and groaned under the onslaught, their branches clawing at the sky as if trying to escape the fury of the storm. Leaves and twigs were torn from their moorings, swirling in the chaotic air. Inside an old Jeep Wagoneer, 4 teenagers jostled along the road. Their laughter and excited chatter a stark contrast to the ominous atmosphere outside. The car's interior was a bubble of warmth and light amidst the storm's fury.
Are you sure this is the right way? The map looks ancient, and these roads don't even seem to be on it.
It's like we're in the middle of nowhere. I can't even get a signal on my phone.
Relax, Em. It's just a little storm. Besides, it wouldn't be a real adventure without a little challenge, right? Think of the stories we'll have to tell.
There was Jake, the group's self-proclaimed leader, his bravado barely masking a flicker of nervousness in his eyes. He was determined to keep up the group's spirits, even if he wasn't entirely sure himself. Next to him sat Emily, her skepticism about the night's adventure evident in her tightly crossed arms. She had always been the cautious one, the voice of reason in their group. In the back, Chris, the group's resident skeptic, tried to lighten the mood with a sarcastic joke, his laughter echoing in the confined space of the car, while his girlfriend Lisa nervously chewed on her fingernails, her eyes darting towards the looming shadows of the forest. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. They were on a quest to explore the legendary Willow Creek Manor, a dare that had circulated among the local teenagers for years, a rite of passage for those brave enough or foolish enough to tempt fate. The manor was said to be haunted, a place where the line between the living and the dead was thin. The legend of the manor had been a source of countless campfire stories, each more terrifying than the last. And tonight, these 4 teenagers were determined to see for themselves if the stories were true. They had heard tales of ghostly apparitions, strange noises, and unexplained phenomena. His words did little to ease the growing tension in the Jeep. The closer they got to the manor, the more palpable the fear became. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the storm seemed to intensify, mirroring the unease that was beginning to settle in the pit of their stomachs. The road became narrower, the trees closing in around them like a dark tunnel. They were venturing into the unknown, into a place where legend and reality blurred, and the darkness held an undeniable power. The air was thick with anticipation and fear, each shadow seeming to hide a secret. The old iron gates of Willow Creek Manor loomed before the 4 teenagers, twisted and gnarled like the grasping claws of some monstrous beast. The rusted metal seemed to whisper secrets of the past, tales of horror and mystery that had long been forgotten. The jeep's headlights struggled to penetrate the thick darkness, casting eerie shadows that danced and writhed in the downpour. The rain pounded relentlessly on the roof, creating a symphony of unsettling sounds that only added to the foreboding atmosphere. The wind howled through the trees, sounding like the mournful cries of trapped souls. The branches swayed and creaked as if they were alive, reaching out to grab anyone who dared to venture too close. With a shuddering groan, the gates creaked open, as if reluctantly granting them passage. The sound echoed through the night, a haunting reminder of the unknown that lay ahead. The four teenagers stepped out of the jeep and into the oppressive darkness of the manor's grounds. Their breaths came out in visible puffs, mingling with the mist that clung to the ground like a shroud. The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and decay, and the silence, broken only by the pounding rain and the rustling of leaves, was unnerving. Every step they took seemed to echo in the stillness, amplifying their sense of isolation.
This is it, huh? Spooky. The words hung in the air, a mix of awe and fear evident in the speaker's voice.
It's freezing. Maybe we should just go back. The chills seem to seep into their bones, making them shiver uncontrollably.
Come on, guys, don't be such chickens. Let's just check it out. The challenge in the voice was clear, a mix of bravado and genuine curiosity.
They started up the overgrown path towards the manor, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of wet leaves. The path seemed to stretch endlessly before them, each step taking them further from the safety of their vehicle. Each step seemed to take them deeper into the heart of the darkness, closer to the secrets that lay hidden within the manor's decaying walls. The air grew colder, and the sense of unease intensified with every passing moment. As they approached the front door, a cold gust of wind slammed against them as if trying to push them back. It was as though the manor itself was warning them to stay away. The teenagers exchanged nervous glances. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. The manor seemed to be watching them, its vacant windows like eyes peering into their souls. The darkened windows seemed to hold 1,000 untold stories, each more terrifying than the last. An overwhelming sense of dread settled over them, a primal instinct warning them to turn back, to escape while they still could. But the thrill of the unknown was too strong, pulling them forward despite their fear. But the dare had been made, and curiosity, like the darkness that surrounded them, could be a powerful force. They took a deep breath, steeling themselves for whatever lay ahead, and stepped forward into the unknown. The manor awakens. The heavy oak door groaned in protest as they pushed it open, revealing a cavernous foyer shrouded in darkness. The air was thick with the scent of decay, a testament to the years of neglect. The air inside was stale and thick with dust. The silence broken only by the sound of their own breathing and the steady drip of water from somewhere deep within the manor. It felt as though the house itself was holding its breath, waiting. A single beam of lightning flashed, momentarily illuminating the grand staircase that dominated the foyer. Its once ornate carpet now threadbare and covered in a layer of grime. The brief light revealed the faded elegance of a bygone era.
Whoa, this place is huge. It's like stepping back in time.
They stepped inside, their eyes slowly adjusting to the gloom. Shadows danced on the walls, creating eerie shapes that seemed to move with a life of their own. Cobwebs hung from every corner and dust covered every surface like a shroud. The room felt like a tomb, preserving the past in a layer of neglect. The air was heavy with the weight of time and the lingering presence of countless forgotten memories. Each artifact seemed to tell a story, a fragment of history lost to the ages. They could almost feel the echoes of the past swirling around them, whispers of laughter, of sorrow, of fear. It was as if the manor itself was alive, watching them. As they ventured deeper into the manor, the floorboards creaked beneath their feet, each step a discordant note in the oppressive silence. The sound seemed to reverberate through the empty halls. They wandered through darkened hallways, their flashlights cutting through the gloom, revealing glimpses of the manor's former grandeur. A faded tapestry depicting a hunting scene, its colors long since dulled by time. A crystal chandelier missing half its prisms hanging precariously from the ceiling, a portrait of a stern-faced couple, their eyes seeming to follow the teenager's every move. The painting's gaze was unnerving, as if it held secrets of its own. The storm raged outside, and the wind howled through the gaps in the windows, creating an eerie symphony of moans and whistles. The manor seemed to respond to the storm, creaking and groaning in protest. The teenagers' laughter from earlier had died, replaced by a tense silence broken only by their hushed whispers and the creaking of the old house settling around them. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation and unease. They could feel their hearts pounding in their chests, a steady rhythm of fear that echoed the drip, drip, drip of water from somewhere in the darkness. Each drop seemed to mark the passage of time, a countdown to an unknown fate. The scream terror grips the teenagers. The library was a vast, shadowy room lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. The musty scent of decaying paper hung heavy in the air, and the only light came from their flashlights and the occasional flicker of lightning through the boarded-up windows. They could hear the storm raging outside, but inside the library there was an unnatural stillness, a sense of being observed.
This is creepy, even for me. I bet this place is full of first editions.
Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence. It was Lisa, her voice raw with terror. The teenagers spun around, their hearts pounding, to see her standing frozen in fear, her eyes wide with horror, staring at something behind them.
What is it, Lisa? What did you see?
Lisa couldn't speak. She just pointed a trembling finger towards the far end of the library, where the shadows seemed to gather and writhe in the dim light. The teenagers slowly turned, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, searching for the source of Lisa's terror. There, at the edge of their light's reach, stood a figure shrouded in shadow. It was tall and gaunt, its form indistinct in the darkness, but they could feel its eyes fixed on them, cold and malevolent. A low growl emanated from the figure, sending chills down their spines.
Run!
Emily screamed, breaking the spell that had held them captive. They thought that they were going to die and didn't know which way to go. The four teenagers, hearts still racing from their encounter with the shadowy figure, frantically searched for a way out of the library. Their flashlights flickered as they scanned the room, and it was Emily who noticed the faint outline of a hidden door behind an old, dusty bookshelf. Shoving aside the heavy volumes, they uncovered a small, narrow passageway that seemed to lead deeper into the manor. The walls of the passage were damp and covered in cobwebs, but it was their only hope of escape. They squeezed through one by one, their breaths shallow and quick. The passage twisted and turned, and with each step the air grew colder and more oppressive. The teenagers could feel the manor's presence around them, as if it were a living entity reluctant to let them go. But they pressed on, driven by sheer will and the primal urge to survive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they saw a faint glimmer of light ahead. With renewed energy, they hurried towards it, emerging into the open air just as the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon. They stumbled out of the passage, collapsing on the dew-covered grass, gasping for breath. As they looked back at the manor, now bathed in the soft light of morning, they realized that the true horror wasn't the ghostly figure or the creaking floors. It was the darkness they had felt within themselves, the fear, the doubt, the guilt. They had confronted their deepest fears and survived, but they knew that the memories of Willow Creek Manor would haunt them forever. They vowed to never return to the manor, but as they walked away, the shadows of their experience clung to them, a reminder of the night they faced the abyss and emerged forever changed. The four teenagers, having faced their deepest fears, finally find a hidden passage that leads them out of the manor. As they step into the light of dawn, they realize the true horror was the darkness within themselves. They vow to never return, but the haunting memories of Willow Creek Manor will forever linger in their minds.